I'm Devin Dabney,
I'm Chris Hampton.
and this is how
Hip-hop taught me
Hip-hop taught me creativity,
playfulness,
humility,
courage,
motherhood.
everything.
Okay, first things first. Half of this podcast are lesson episodes. Half are these liner notes. And if you haven't listened to this week's lesson, Aesop Rock taught me aging gracefully, go do that now. My guess is the Aesop Rock never thought he would teach someone to age gracefully, but that's what he's done. Because this is a music and talk podcast, those lessons episodes are only available on Spotify, and with Spotify Premium, you can hear the full song, in this case, Lotta Years, immediately after the episode. Now, before we get into this, question: who has the best rap voice in all of hip hop, and what is it that makes it so special?
You know, this is a really hard question. And I picked my best voice based off of not just what I like, but how versatile it is and how how many situations it can be used in. And for that reason, I picked Busta Rhymes.
Fuck, I didn't even have him as an honorable mention, and that's a great pick.
Yeah, he's dude, his voice is a weapon. Like, I mean, like,
yeah.
Even if you just think through his catalog, like the hit songs he has, like Put Your Hands, and like and of course we know him from Scenario. But even like you go from those to like Victory, where he's just the person doing the chorus, like he can just do so many ranges and styles, and it sounds so natural, you know. Like, some rappers only sound good fast, some rappers don't sound good fast at all, like, and in my opinion, and he like blends into every scenario perfectly. One honorable mention I do want to say is Ludacris, because his voice is like, in my opinion, he's got the best delivery, arguably the best delivery out of any rapper. Just everything he says is like, wow, but he's not quite as versatile as Busta Rhymes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think Busta's one of the most versatile rappers, musicians,
oh yeah,
you know, ever. Ludacris has this interesting delivery that I really like. And I've always wondered if I like it just because I'm like from the old school, like started listening to hip hop in '84. Because his delivery has like that quality of those old MCs, you know?
Yeah.
And I just love it. It brings me back a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I think part of that, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, so we'll fact check it later. But Ludacris used to be a DJ, so I think
he was a radio DJ.
Yeah, so I think he has that like booming, like he's used to speaking in a way that's like very enunciated, and like a lot of rappers, is particularly in like the '80s, you listen to him and you think like, do they realize they don't have to yell into the mic, like they or like enunciate everything? I think we talked about that last time, but they're still learning how to be on the mic. And yeah, Ludacris just like, I think he hit the top of what that kind of delivery is capable of, because he can still convey that presence even when he's not yelling, you know, like just on it. Yeah, I don't know. He just has like such confidence when he raps that everything he says, like he has a song called Undisputed, and the last line in it is like, I'm the undefeated champ, y'all niggas suck. And I'm like, damn, Luda, you're right, I do suck. Like, I believe you, you know, like everything he says is believable, you know? Oh, man.
Yep, I agree. And you're right. I think it does come from that radio background, because he's kind of got that, that like, you know, he projects really well. So you can tell he's talked into a mic way before he was a rapper.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I want to hear your choice.
All right. I've got a couple of honorable mentions. Number one is the like raspy, biting Jadakiss voice.
Man,
I just love it. And I recently listened to a podcast, Nas and Miss Info interviewing Jadakiss, and as soon as Jada talked, Miss Info was like, "Oh, the voice says it all. Like we don't even need to introduce him now." And it's so true. Jadakiss is so unique.
Mm-hmm.
I also had as honorable mention the multiple voices of Nicki Minaj. God, she's so good.
Oh yeah.
And to parallel her with Busta,
Mm.
I think those are my two favorite guest verses ever. Busta on
Yeah.
Scenario, Nicki on Monster.
Yeah. Damn.
They both were so good, and their voices took over those tracks
Mm-hmm.
so effectively that you just had to hear more of them. So,
Yep.
but my win, because I started listening to hip hop in the 80s, has to go to the big baritone booming Chuck D.
Yeah. That's
Um,
fair.
what I love about Chuck is that his voice matches perfectly what he does with his music and his platform and his life and all
Yeah.
of it. It just, whenever he talks, it feels important and it commands attention.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, you should be a little afraid to cross him. That's
Yeah.
how his voice sounds. Um, and I just think it's perfect with what he does with his music and his life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't think of it that way until you said that, but when I look back at the rap that I listened to when I was younger, Public Enemy was like one of the first, if not the first, music that I listened to where I felt like I was being taught something, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to it just being music. And I think,
Yeah,
his voice has a lot to do with that. Um,
totally.
yeah, it,
Yeah, he's a teacher, a preacher,
mhm.
voice of a black planet. He's
Yeah.
just it's brilliant, and his voice matches it so well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm also glad that you mentioned Jadakiss, because at first when I was trying to pick my favorite voices, it was hard because I have so many favorites. Like I love Jadakiss's voice. I love honestly, I love Tupac's voice. Like I think it's really powerful. But those are just voices that I like. And I was like, I
Right.
gotta pick somebody based off of some measurable qualities, and like
Mm-hmm.
I think versatility, because like is subjective. Some people don't like Snoop Dogg's voice, some people love it, but I think as a rapper you want a voice that can fit into or adapt to like any sort of environment. And yeah, Busta Rhymes, and yeah, Nicki Minaj is someone I didn't think of till you said it, but yeah, basically the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's like, how do they use that instrument? That's one of the essential parts of hip hop, is that the voice is an instrument on the track. It's not hiding in the mix.
Yeah.
It's the main instrument. And those people, the Busta Rhymes, the Nicki Minaj's, the Chuck D's, they put that instrument front and center so well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And on the note of like just thinking about Aesop Rock, one of my favorite things about like his catalog is listening to his voice evolve over time.
Mm-hmm.
Because in like his earlier stuff in like Flow and gosh, what, like Daylight or Labor Days, like you can tell that he still hasn't quite got like how he's going to use his voice. I'm not saying he's rapping poorly. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
you can tell that he's still like learning volume control and like what to enunciate, and even just like what register in his voice he wants to use. And by the time he gets
Mm-hmm.
to None Shall Pass, definitely by Impossible Kid, I feel like he's got like the perfect incarnation of his voice, where it's like that
Yeah.
deep like tone, but also still able to enunciate, which I think is something that is not given enough credit.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not saying enunciating is better
Mm-hmm.
than not enunciating, but it does suit him really well.
Yeah.
And I agree. And you can see him in some interviews, the rare interview that he does, talking about he doesn't like looking back at his catalog because of the way he was using his voice. And I think it's cool that he's aware of that, and he's not treating it as just something that happens,
Mm-hmm.
but he's very intentionally working with this instrument that he's got.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that is, again, one of the most important things about being a rapper. One of my friends really early on told me something that I never forgot, which is that rap is not like poetry in the sense of the words carrying the meaning.
Mm,
Actually, like, probably how you say things means more than what you're saying, because
yeah.
how you say something conveys the meaning of it, and also like how you say something, particularly as a rapper, is what makes it stick. Like the reason we remember Jay's verses isn't because of the words necessarily, it's because of the flow. So yeah, I think
Right.
it's just it's a craft that I think sometimes people don't consider when about rappers, is that it's not just writing and then saying the words.
Yep, totally. And I think this guy's one of the best at it. It's been really fun watching him evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you mentioned, all the way from his earliest releases, like back in Napster days,
Mm-hmm.
when he was with Def Jux, and all the way up to now. And something he's doing now, and he did on this entire album, which I really, as a DIY guy, I really appreciate,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's done well, is that he self-produced the entire thing.
Yeah.
All the beats are his. Um, and I think he doesn't get mentioned in the best MC producer category, maybe ever,
Yeah.
but he's got to be up there.
Yeah, I mean, self-admittedly by Aesop Rock, I think some of that obviously has to do with the way he raps.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are some people that, at least like, in his earlier days, like late 2000s, like some people thought that he was just saying nonsense. Like some people thought Aesop Rock was mumble rap. uh,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, totally.
which is crazy. And I mean, he himself is like, I mean, I guess I could see how you would think that, but I think you'd also have to be totally dumb to not pick up something from what I'm saying. But yeah, like it's just interesting to think like, I mean, he definitely is not the most accessible person, but I don't know. I like having to work for my meal, so when I was in high school or like high school, college is when I found his music, but I loved having to like print out his lyrics and be like, what the fuck is chicanery? What does that mean in this context? He's taught me more words than like probably my whole college career.
Yeah, I listened to an interview with Open Mike Eagle years ago, and um, Mike is talking about when he was on tour with Aesop Rock, and he comes off of stage one night, and Aesop Rock is like, "Mike, you use the word spoon a lot," and Mike's like, "What?" And he starts thinking, and he's like, "Oh shit, the word spoon is in like 4 of my songs." And it's just amazing that somebody would even consider that. Like, I
E-
don't want to repeat a lot of words if I can help it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like how his brain works. Like when he looks at I imagine that like the word finder that you can use on Microsoft Word where you type in spoon and then it's like one of 4 times. Like he just has that
Yeah.
constantly. I also love how you kind of like low key used his voice when you were quoting it. Use the word spoon a lot. I love how he just has like that. It's like a draw, not a drawl, but especially when he talks on records, like I just think it's so funny. Not funny, but I don't know. It's very unique. He just has a very
Yeah.
unique voice.
Yeah, totally. And something else I love about the idea that this is self-produced is that's how so many of us came up initially.
Mm-hmm.
Was like we discover hip hop, or it's handed to us or whatever. And when we want to get involved with it, it's all DIY. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, how do I make beats?
Yeah.
Maybe you're just doing it like pounding on the table.
Yeah.
Um, maybe you have like a Casio SK1 keyboard or something that
Mm-hmm.
your mom bought you as a toy, but you're figuring out how to make beats, you're figuring out how to rhyme over beats, you're
Yeah.
figuring out how to DJ and put songs together, and then you're learning to perform eventually. And I think that DIY ethos is so integral to the fabric of hip hop, and
Mm-hmm.
and you can hear Aesop Rock doing it all the time, which I think is amazing. Um, if we look at the biggest artists, they're not doing a lot of that. You
Yeah.
know, they've kind of slid into this space where this is the thing I do well. I'm going to do it and let all these other people do the other things, which is
Yeah.
a a great place to be. It's how a lot of great songs are created.
Yeah.
But the fact that he can be so prolific and
Mm-hmm.
so consistently good while doing a lot of it by himself
Yeah.
is crazy to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what you're saying about the DIY aspect of hip hop being important, I think that's part of why, as a child, it seems so mythical and there's like this warrior mindset. Because it really is like you start out a quest level one with no gear, no weapons, and you
Yep.
like acquired 4-track recorder, and then like you learn how to
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It very much is that. It's like you start with a little thing. I mean, that's how my rapping started, literally with a 4-track recorder. And just like building up your okay, now I have Fruity Loops, if anyone remembers that program, or like now I
Mm-hmm.
have an actual cardioid condenser mic, and like just leveling up. I mean, there's so much about hip hop that just seems so mythical to me because of that aspect of like working forward with starting with zero and then just building your support and resources. Another person you made me think of when you were talking about that is Big Crit. Like he's another person that is
Mm-hmm.
like super prolific and such a good rapper, and like I'm pretty sure he's self-produced like most of his music,
Mm.
but doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. Like that just I mean, because he's doing that and he's also like a very successful mainstream rapper. So
Right.
like what else do you need from a rapper? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Um, this this album, and all the scratches are done by DJ Zone,
Mm.
who I've seen with Aesop live a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so cool to me when you listen to a turntablist, who can reproduce their scratches exactly over and over and over. You know,
Jeez.
I sort of came up in hip hop in Cincinnati, amongst a crew of turntablists who were brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely spoiled in terms of listening to turntablists,
Mm-hmm.
and and I was blown away by DJ Zone, who does all the scratches on this album, live, because it sounds identical to the songs. And when those, there's a case to be made for performing it differently than it's on the album, and that can be very
Sure.
cool. But for me, it's also those scratches become a really important part of the fabric of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have them done exactly as they're done on the album is so cool to me. And just a liner notes, point from this song is that the yo that's scratched in here
Yeah.
is from Run DMC's Beats to the Rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, we've talked about it, I love when hip hop calls back, to something that came before. And I mean, with digital tables now, it would have been very easy for Ace or Zone to record their own yo and scratch that and not
Yeah.
have to worry about a sample of any kind. Instead, they do what hip hop does, and they call back to the people who came before. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of his songs definitely take some older samples, some of them pretty obscure, and
Hmm.
chop them and use them. And I think like yeah, that's very intentional. It would, like you said, it'd be super easy to just record your own vocal. but that would take away some of the again, the DIY. Like, I don't have all of this. I can't record a good vocal, but what I do have is this old record from my dad's basement. I can use this and just use the beginning part, like it still has that
Yep.
element of like, I don't quite have everything, so I'm going to reuse what's already been laid out. Yeah, I think, and I love that aspect of his music, like I think that's something that's pretty common in all of his records even now. Yeah, like that record was 2016, right? That's when Impossible Kid came out. I'm pretty sure, and they're still doing that.
Yep, 2016. um another DIY thing about this song
Mm-hmm.
that I love, and I didn't make the connection until right now,
Mm-hmm.
but this weekend I started on a Check the Rhyme episode for this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking about the year 1991 and what I was doing in 91,
Uh-huh.
and that was the first time I recorded a music video of my own, like a song that I had written.
Damn.
And at the time, I didn't know enough about making video, and I didn't have the equipment to make a video where you
Yeah.
would sort of act out the track. Instead, I had to do it live, essentially.
Yeah.
And the video for this song is live. It's him acting out the story that's happening
Oh, wow.
while the beats are playing, but he's actually rapping. It's not him just like rapping along to his own track. It's him actually rapping in the scenario, and it's really cool. It feels very DIY,
Yeah.
but it also has enough polish to feel like it's something something different, something unique, something important.
Is it like one of those I won't remember the name, but like one of those walking concert like performances, like where he's moving? Because I
Yeah.
mean, the scene he sets in the song is like that, so it's like the camera's following him. I gotta watch this. Damn.
Yeah, it's cool. It's playing out all the stories he's telling in the song live in real time while he's rapping. And it's not the vocal track from the album that you're hearing. You're actually hearing the actual performance
Yeah.
inside the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
Inside the juice shop. So
Damn, that's
yeah,
cool.
it's cool.
This is another thing I just thought of. Were hoverboards around when he wrote this? Because now, like,
I don't know.
Like, I'm just thinking, because I mean, obviously they're not like hoverboards in the sense of like literal like anti-gravity boards, but we do have hoverboards now, and I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if I just laugh because like the it's supposed to be a joke in the song that he says, "I bet you ride a hoverboard to work," but people actually do ride hoverboards now. So I don't know. I just thought of that. Like, were hoverboards around yet when he said that?
It's so funny to think back on the things we thought were extremely futuristic.
Yeah.
That just a few years later are relatively commonplace.
Yeah. Yeah. It just and also just slight side note, I love how you can tell like the way that people think of what is futuristic at that time is like based upon what's around them. So like we thought like, in the 20s or 30s, 40s, the future was flying cars or like things that make breakfast for you. Like it's like very based around like these things. I don't know. Like, do you get what I'm saying of like how people
think
judge
so.
what quote unquote futuristic is so interesting just because of it's based upon what is around them.
Well, most of our imaginations are pretty limited.
Yeah.
So we only think like a step or two further. So we'll take a thing that we have and add some like futuristic component to it, and that must be the future,
Right. Yeah. Or just, I guess now I realize kind of what I was getting at is just like some of the things we think of as futuristic are just like there's no reason for us to have it. Like in the Jetsons, they have that bank telephone tube thing that you like teleport down into, like why would we need that? What world are we living in where we have to teleport through a tube? I'm not getting in it. But yeah, it's just like things like that. I'm like, why did we think that's what the future was? Or why, or even just like with the video call thing, like why did we think that that was so far ahead? And I guess it's just because we can't predict what innovations will come, but it's just interesting how quickly um time can move and like how quickly things can change, which is part of like what this song's about. It's just like, holy shit, like so much has changed, and like I feel 1,000 years old, but it's just because in 5 years a lot of things can change.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of like things changing, it used to be, and I'm sure some people still do this, but when an album came out, one of the ways that record labels would distribute it is to put all the songs on YouTube on a playlist in order, and they would have very often they would have, and Rhymesayers does this really well. They would have a video that goes for the entire album.
Mm.
It would be something really simple but kind of fun. This one was made by Rob Shaw. It's on the Rhymesayers YouTube channel. I'll have it linked in the show notes here. But it's a complete abridged recreation of the movie The Shining.
Ooh.
But very, very low budget with these like strange little wooden figurines. And it's so low budget that the like iconic opening scene of The Shining, it's this long aerial shot of a car driving up this winding mountain road.
Mm-hmm.
That shot is a VW Hot Wheel on a string being pulled along a piece of plywood.
Yes.
And there are no attempts to hide the string, the shadow of the person pulling it, or their bare feet like walking along beside it in the grass. It's so fucking good.
Oh shit.
And the little figurines are acting out the entire movie. It's hilarious.
That's amazing. There is something to be said. That is an art form that like of intentionally making something so low budget that like, yeah, there's that it's like obvious that it's supposed to be funny. I love that.
Yeah, same. Some like really specific things about this song and this album that I love. Back to the DIY hip hop thing, like there's a real art to arranging songs, putting them in a good order.
Yeah.
And this is one of the best examples of it I know.
Yeah.
Where when this song ends, the next song on the album is called Dorks, and it immediately begins with the line, question: if I died in my apartment like a rat in a cage, would the neighbors smell the corpse before the cat ate my face?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he spends this whole song confronting his age, and then he's like, shit, what about if I die?
Yeah.
Immediately on the next song. And I'm a little older than Aesop by a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like real considerations, like I'm going to die. What happens to my legacy? What if the cat just fucking eats my face?
I don't think your cat would do that.
She wouldn't. She's way too sweet for that.
She's one of the nicest cats I've ever met. Oh man. Yeah. I miss that about hip hop too. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that rappers don't do that. It's just that the order matters less nowadays, it feels. And yeah, just little subtle things like that can enhance a song too, like the order of a song. I think that's what it is. It's not that rappers don't put things in good orders. It's just that the order isn't used as a tool to amplify a song, like, because that song, like you said, that song was made better because of the order,
Yeah.
And I'm totally doing conjecture, it may be that rappers still do put things in a specific order, but I guess it's not quite as obvious to me now. Or maybe I'm just getting older and I can't understand the order. I don't know.
Well, I think I think we could go down a massive rabbit hole of, how albums have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's because the way they're received, the way they're delivered, um, whether it's because of the fact that most albums nowadays have 12 different producers if there are 12 different tracks.
Yeah.
um, so a lot of considerations have to be given when thinking about albums nowadays. Maybe don't seem as um, what's the word I'm looking for here? Saying they don't seem as thought out isn't what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's why I'm careful with it. I don't want to make it sound like one is worse, but I get what you're
Yeah.
trying to say.
But this is almost a concept album to some degree. Like, he spends the
100%.
entire album really thinking about his age and growing older and confronting that, in every song in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the order on a concept album means even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I guess I didn't really think about the album that way. Um it's yeah, I mean, I guess the whole thing is about him about him getting older, and I guess that's the point of the title. um you know, the nothing Aesop Rock does is on accident. And I wonder why he chose to do this, but the title of this album is the same as this old exploitation movie from the Philippines, The
Mm.
Impossible Kid. It's a 1982 exploitation film, and it's like a parody of spy movies, and the lead actor uh is someone who has dwarfism. So the whole, I mean, they
Mm.
make a lot of jokes in the movie at this actor's expense, obviously, but he's like a
Sure.
2 foot tall a spy, and he's like I mean, he's an adult, but he's like, I mean, hence the name Impossible Kid. And
Uh,
I wondered what if he did that on purpose. I mean, he had to have done it on purpose, just because I mean, he's such a well researched person. But I was like, I don't know if I want to interrogate the reasoning behind calling it that so early in our podcast career, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out because it not only is such a, I mean, such a unique title, that but also I think there's something he's trying to say something with that, or maybe he's not and it's just coincidence, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I haven't seen him mention it in interviews, but who knows? Those things get stuck in our heads, and it would be pretty easy, I think, to draw some parallels between um, someone who's got dwarfism but doing this amazing job that
Hmm.
they're meant to do, and an underground rapper who has had a hard time breaking through to the mainstream and has just decided to do the thing he's doing really fucking well.
Yeah.
Um, I think we could draw those parallels all day. I have no idea if they're actual things, but I
Yeah.
think that's one of the coolest things about art in general is that we get to receive it how we receive it and draw
Yeah.
the parallels that we want to draw. We don't have to push those onto the artist necessarily,
That's true. That's true. That's one of the beautiful things about and challenging things about making art is once you've made it and you release it, it doesn't belong to you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes whatever the zeitgeist tells you that it is, you know. So you might have, yeah, like he might have not even meant to really like have that coincidence, but I received it that way, and now that's a connection I've made.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just really cool. One thing I thought of earlier that I wanted to say about the DIY aspect of of hip hop. One thing that I'm kind of glad that it outgrew in terms of DIY is the artwork. uh,
Oh
do
yeah.
you remember the era where everybody made their album covers on Microsoft Paint, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
like it
Absolutely.
would be I can't even get the words out. It'd be like them, and then like it's like a fucking airplane, and like just like and gold everywhere, and like dude, and like the words were always that like goosebumps, like slime,
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing about this that Aesop Rock did not do. He outsourced the artwork to, I'm pretty sure, Alex Pardee, who's one of my favorite like
Yeah.
artists. Period. Like he has such a cool, evocative, creepy style.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I actually think that Alex Pardee drew a couple of Aesop Rock's album
Yeah,
covers,
I
but
think so.
this one is definitely like it has I mean, actually, in a lot of ways, it emulates the style I just made fun of. It's got the spooky, like dripping
Mm-hmm.
words and like, but it's not Photoshop. I mean, just go look up like some old Project Pat or Gangsta Boo album covers, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think the art in his catalog is really intentional,
So good too.
and
Yeah.
I mean he's an artist. He went to art school, and
Yeah.
that's what his background is. So I'm sure he cares a lot about it, and it shows. It matches what he's doing.
God, dude, that's another speaking of art, like that's probably one of my favorite songs on this album is Rings. Because he
Mm-hmm.
talks about like
So good.
used to draw like man, that's one of that might be hmm. No, my favorite song is Blood Sandwich, but Rings is a close second. I love Blood Sandwich. It's such a good song.
Yeah.
But
So much of this album is that way, and I think that's one of the like signs of maturity
mhm,
in song making is that you you let a track breathe and you become
mhm,
more relatable, and you can look at young rappers
yeah,
and they're trying to fit as many syllables as possible
right,
into a bar, and Aesop used to be really really complex
yeah,
and hard to follow,
yeah,
and and that was part of the like appeal of it. But this album, he becomes a little more relatable, and he's really exploring his own story at this point,
mhm,
and it doesn't sound like he's rapping just for the sake of rapping. He's actually got things to say, and
yeah.
that's what makes it so hard for me to pick a favorite song off of this album.
That's
They're all so relatable in some way.
That's a fair point too. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Is it's not that he was worse at rapping back then. It's just that it's like an unrefined ability that he has. Like he just woke up and I have powers. Like, and he's like still learning how the powers work. And
Hmm.
another person slash group that I think of that has a similar trajectory in terms of evolution is Atmosphere. You know,
Yep.
in their early like Overcast and like those albums, like Slug raps a lot faster, like the rhythm is a little bit more complicated, and like he's like you said, he's fitting a lot more words. But then you go to like Southsiders and he's got that like, I don't know, it's like he's hit his like final form, and he's like he is the ultimate dad rapper, like just like like
Yeah,
I don't mean that
totally.
in a bad way either. I mean
No,
it in a
no.
way of like, sit down, son. You're gonna learn some shit. Like I'm gonna learn you. And like when he's talking to you on Southsiders, everything he says sounds like, yes, you were right, Slug. Like this is
Hmm.
like I need to heed this advice. And but you couldn't get there without the exploration that happened earlier. So which is why I make sure to emphasize that I'm not saying that they're worse back then. It's just that it's part of their journey, and figuring out like what best suits them as an artist. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's definitely. I think that Aesop Rock found that way before this, but I think this is just an example of him. Maybe what he found here is the relatability, like you said, because None Shall Pass, like that album, I think he's got his delivery down, but the stories are still like they seem so wild sometimes, and like he's taking something that most rappers would talk about and just like in speaking about it in his language. But yeah, like from that to this to like Malibu Ken is like it becomes more and more self-referential.
Yeah, and I think hip hop in general for many years was just viewed as a young person's sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ultimately comes from the fact that it was still young in
Yeah.
its, itself. It's just now that we're seeing rappers who are grown-ups
Yeah.
and who are confronting the things that, life really throws at you and feeling comfortable to talk about it.
Yeah.
Not feeling like they have to fit into this young person's lifestyle. And the good music does that. If
Yeah.
you look at any other genre, they're confronting real life grown people issues.
Mm-hmm.
um, so seeing Aesop Rock doing that, and Atmosphere doing that, um, I love it, and it's one of the
Yeah.
things that draws me to that style of hip hop. Jay-Z does it well.
Mm-hmm.
Killer Mike does it well. There are a few other mainstream quote unquote rappers that do it really well, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm drawn to that far more than you know the issues that a 20-year-old has.
Right, right. And I think, as I think about like music in general, I think another reason that we think of it as a young person's game is because a lot of our most like famous musicians have died young, not just
Yeah.
rappers. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
the 27 Club is a thing, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
so I think we just haven't gotten to see our most a lot of our most like prized musicians get to an age where um they've been in music for like 40 years, and like they've been doing like there's not that many Bruce Springsteens, like people that have
Right.
lived that long and are still making music and still performing, and arguably like still coming up with material that's really good, just like their stuff was literally 40 years ago.
Right.
um yeah, so yeah, and that I'm glad you brought that up, because I was curious to ask you. I mean, you talk about aging gracefully in this episode, and you talk about how it's not a matter of like it's a matter of perspective, right? That you can look at these things and choose to look at it as like, oh, I'm being left behind, or as like, oh wow, I'm a more whole person.
Mm-hmm.
How, in your opinion, and I know it'll be different for of each rapper, but how can rappers age gracefully? Like how has a Jay-Z been able to maintain his longevity while not losing authenticity? How can a rapper continue to get older but still be who they are as a musician?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, over the years, and I think Jay Z is a really great example of it in real time because he's like telling us,
Mhm.
"I'm done wearing oversized white tees,
Yeah.
and now I'm wearing button-up shirts."
Yeah.
I think just admitting that,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be that you stopped wearing oversized white tees,
Yeah.
but just admitting that things are changing, and you're seeing things in a different light from a different perspective is the key to it.
Mhm.
You don't have to keep rapping about the things that 20-year-old rappers are rapping about. And
Yeah.
that's not saying that they are rapping about dumb shit.
Yeah.
Some of them are,
Yeah.
clearly, but that's what their life is, and that's fine. I was wilding out when I was 20 as well, so they should be too. I can't fault them for that, but I'm not 20 anymore. So
Yeah.
all of those rappers who you heard 15 years ago saying, I don't want to be a 50-year-old rapper, 40, even 40-year-old rapper. They're
Yeah.
all still rapping, and they're all 47, 48, 50 years old.
Yeah.
And they're still fucking great. So
Yeah.
it's
That's
just admitting it. It's just owning your truth. It's just sitting in it and being okay with it. I don't see a problem with it. Music in general can be made by, it doesn't have to be made by young people. It can, brilliant, beautiful
mhm.
music can be made by people who've lived a lot of life. And that's okay for rappers to embrace.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very well put. Because I've never understood why we think. I mean, I understand why we think that way, but I don't understand why more people don't see that like rap is something that you can literally do until you die. Like, and I don't know why it's an art form that we relegate to younger people. I can't think of too many other art forms where we're like, oh, they like if you're like, oh, he's too old to paint, or like, you know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
Like, we don't do that with them, but with rappers it's like, oh, you're too old to rap. And actually, I think probably one of the earliest examples I can remember of someone not caring about their age as a rapper is Eminem, because he did, when they did the BT Shady 2.0 cipher, the very last line he says is, I'm a rap until I'm fossil fuel. And it's
Mm,
just like, that was the first time that I mean, I was 21 years old when I heard that I wasn't afraid of being an old rapper. Like, I was like, shit, like Eminem's like, nah, I'm not retiring. Like, what the fuck? Why would I retire? And it kind of hit me of like, yeah, why would you retire? Like, I mean, what's gonna happen? You know, like, you're not gonna be a worse rapper as you get older. You're literally only gonna get better, because you're gonna keep
yeah.
practicing. So yeah, you just kind of reminded me of that moment, because I think that was the first time that I heard a rapper speak about aging positively, was him.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to, something we talked a little about in the J. Cole episode and the Ski Mask episode.
Mm-hmm.
It requires you to embrace change.
Mm-hmm.
If you're stuck in the whatever style was popular when you first hit the scene
Yeah.
or when you first learned to do it, you know, if you're stuck in the like 1995 version of rap,
Mm-hmm.
then the stuff you're making later is going to sound old.
Yeah.
It's just going to. And some of that will be chalked up to classic. Some of it's just going to sound old.
Yeah.
So if you're embracing the new things that are coming along and taking little parts of that and allowing the new things to influence you the same way the things
Yeah.
that came before you did, then I don't think you're ever going to go out of style.
Yeah, that's another good point too. I think that, kind of hinting back to what you were saying about getting old being a matter of perspective rather than like a thing that's forced upon you. I think that people that don't change at all in terms of their artistry are not growing as people, because I don't rap about the same things I rapped about 15 years ago, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that I was intentionally like, okay, you're no longer going to rap about this. It's just that my
Right.
life has changed and I have changed and the things that I do have changed. So I just naturally am going to rap about different things. Um, and that's another thing that I love about some artists that are like my favorite artists, is that they're not stuck in one thing. Like, you don't have to do the same thing every album, and you're not stuck with whatever you rapped about the first time you started rapping. I mean, like, one of the greatest, and I might have to do an episode on this, is Tyler the Creator. Like, his journey from 2010 to now, dude, like, it's like seven different people
Yeah.
rapping,
Yep.
like, you would never think that the same person who produced Call Me If You Get Lost produced Bastard. Like, two
Right.
totally different albums, totally different subject, totally different feel. Like, it like, I mean, just and those are the kind of artists. I mean, and those are the people that I call artists, like
Mm-hmm.
someone who is literally making art, and art is time sensitive. Like, it just is. So there's no getting around that. And trying to avoid, I think it's like trying to avoid getting old is what makes you old, and then just accepting that you're
Mm-hmm.
old ironically makes you not old. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Owning who you are is so important. Have you ever seen Aesop Rock live?
God, no, I wish.
I've seen him live a handful of times, and he he translates really well on stage. And he could very well try to be like a more animated rapper on stage. He could
Yeah.
jump around a lot and, try to be more exciting, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
He sits in his like Aesop Rock
Yes.
truth, and you can see when he's performing how uncomfortable it makes him to be on stage in front of all these people who know every word he's going to say.
Yeah.
He raps with his eyes closed a lot of the time, like he's trying
Wow.
to, make sure he doesn't know he's there.
Yeah, yeah.
and I think as a result of that, like of him really embodying these moments that he's talking about, he makes these outrageous faces while his
Mhm.
eyes are closed. It's very cool to watch, and it matches his music so fucking well. It's clearly not his comfort zone,
Yeah.
but he's really mastered it. And I love that. And I think it's part of why he's so good when he's in a group.
Mhm. Oh,
Like when
man.
he's performing as Hail Mary Mallon with
Yeah.
Rob Sonic, there's a very clear contrast between him and Rob Sonic, or
Yeah.
between him and DJ Zone,
Yeah.
where they're a little more animated and he's like sitting in this really uncomfortable space being himself. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
I was going to ask you what he's like on stage, because he, based on his interviews and the way he talks about himself in his songs, he does not seem like the most extroverted rapper. He seems like the
Yeah.
Batman of hip hop. Like, he hides in a cave, he plans out everything, super intelligent, like has a plan to take down every rapper but doesn't do it. Like, that's how I picture Aesop Rock. And so, yeah, I couldn't imagine him. It'd be so weird if he got out on stage and was like jumping around like a I don't know, who's an animated rapper.
Like Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, like Busta Rhymes. Yeah, like if he came out like that, it would be. Yeah, so I love hearing that he's true to himself on stage, which kind of tracks
Yeah.
for the kind of artist that he's shown himself to be. And another thing that you brought up that I wanted to mention is Aesop Rock is like the best collaborator ever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's done so many albums with somebody else, and he always, like, it always enhances him because his style is so unique and so polarizing, honestly. Just, I mean, like we talked about earlier, when you put him against a Rob Sonic, it like amplifies that even more, but it's like you're not getting as much of it as you want, so it makes it more special to hear him come in for a couple of crazy ass bars. Like, yeah, like he comes in and is like needle nose pliers and a Paragona level design, and then like Rob Sonic comes
Yeah.
back in, like it's just enough Aesop Rock that you're like, damn, like that was fucking dope. Like it helps you appreciate his skill more. Not saying Rob, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's just the
Yeah.
contrast of another artist makes it like, oh shit, like what he just said was fucking bars. Like, that was dope. Yeah.
Well, I think he does it well as like a guest verse and
Mhm.
as a producer. Have you ever heard Vigilante Genesis? It's a
No.
project
No.
Aesop Rock produced
Type that down.
for Blueprint. Blueprint was an Ohio rapper, Columbus, Ohio rapper.
Mhm.
Also affiliated with Rhymesayers, was on Aesop Rock's Alchemy, or Old Song.
Mhm.
It's kind of where Blueprint first popped up. And Aesop produced this entire Vigilante Genesis, which is a concept album story. I think you would like it. It's very comic bookish
Yeah.
feeling. It's very, very cool. You should check it out.
Man, yeah, that sounds right up my alley. I mean, concept albums in general are just my favorite, And you saying that kind of reminds me of the feeling I get when I listen to like Deltron 3030 or something,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that makes Aesop Rock so good as a collaborator, especially when it's a concept album, or even if he's just guest versing, he's really good at continuing the story or just telling a story in general.
Mm-hmm.
I read an interview of him talking about he very purposely tried to get better at storytelling rap. And one of the ways he tried to do that for a while was by getting rid of the word I in all of his songs.
Mm,
And he would sort of talk about it in third person,
yeah.
like telling a story that he was seeing playing out in front of him.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, he got really good at it. It's some of the best rap stories ever told, I think.
That's a really interesting way to make yourself better at storytelling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm thinking of Atmosphere because I mentioned them earlier, but one thing that Atmosphere does that I think is pretty unique is they, rather than taking out the I, they replace it with you. So a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
it's like you are doing this or you wake up here or like, and it makes it,
Yeah.
it literally puts you in the story that they're telling because they're saying that you're the one doing this, or it's clear that like they're talking to somebody. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a pretty smart way to change around how you rap.
Yeah. And, I think the way he thinks is so interesting, and he brings that the way he thinks in song form. I don't know how it works. I don't know how his stories that he's telling, and this album is full of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how they originate in his brain, but it's brilliant. Um, I know half of this album was recorded or conceptualized and written when he was living in a barn
Mm-hmm.
out, sort of in the middle of nowhere. So maybe that simplicity that shows up in this was sort of seeping in. That's
Mm-hmm.
totally me theorizing. But he was certainly spending a lot of time at that point sitting in his own thoughts and his own issues, and I think you hear it here in a really cool way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and a lot of it, which I think a lot of good music is done this way, but I mean, some of it is based off real experiences. I mean, apparently, this song we're talking about, "Lotta Years," was done about two real people. At least that's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I think just lived experience, and yeah, that sounds like a super unique situation. As a rapper, one of the things I feel like if you want to tell good stories, you have to do one of two things or a mixture of them. One, you have to be living an interesting life. Like you have to be in situations that are not quote unquote normal or not mundane, or you have to be
Yeah.
so good at finding the beauty in the mundane that you can
Yep.
tell a story that is evocative about the most basic shit, which is kind of what Aesop Rock does. He does both, I think. But yeah, just something thinking about storytelling and how that works.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that a lot of people were saying it could never work for a 40, 50-year-old to rap, was because what the fuck do they have to rap about?
Right.
Well, actually, they have a lot more to rap about, as
Right.
long as they can look beneath the surface a little bit and see those lessons and interact with them in a way that can create a song, and I think that's what we're seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like I mean, I said it earlier, but that's why I never understood why we thought of it as a young man's game, because ideally if you can, like, as you get better, like you need less interesting source material to write better songs, like because
Yeah.
you're able, like, your refinement process is better, so you're able to take a drive to work and write a song about the drive to work that's just as good as like your your odyssey of building a multi-million dollar cocaine empire, as all rappers do. You know what I
Yeah. Yep.
mean? Oh my goodness.
Favorite bars for you on this album,
On the album, oh my goodness.
or on the
I thought, I
song?
was like,
Sorry.
Lord, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to think for a while to come up with that.
my my favorite part of this song, just because it sticks out the most, is the part where he's talking about the dreads, the woman that wears the dreads, and she can cut them off and reattach them whenever she wants. Just first of all, it's just because
Yeah.
that's wild. But then the part I remember as a result after it is the like, my mind's fucking blown. The future is amazing. I feel so fucking old. And then the hoverboard, like that whole
Yep.
section is my, like, it hits for me just because, one, like, I mean, again, we talk about order, like the image of of someone having like dreads that they grew and cut off and can put back on. Like I was blown away. I was like, people do that? What? So I was right there with
Yeah.
him when he was saying my mind's fucking blown. The future is amazing. Like that was me in that moment. So that part sticks out to me simply because of how it made me feel.
Yeah, there's a moment in that, like in those bars, that I think is really cool, and I think it shows his like growth as a simpler rapper,
Mm-hmm.
partially, but it's just really good songwriting. Um, and it's the lines are: some lady orders maca, compliments the locks. She asked how many years it took the girl to grow the crop.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of years, and then eventually I cut them, kept them, reattach them anytime I want them.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after that, there's this pause where he lets
Yeah,
the track breathe a little
exactly.
bit, and it's like this little vibraphone sounding thing that to me sounds like a brain opening up to a new world, you know?
Yeah.
It sounds like surprise. And then he says, "My mind's fucking blown. Future is amazing. I feel so fucking old."
Yep.
I fucking love it, man. But I'm with you. For me, I bet you clone your pets and ride a
Mm-hmm.
hoverboard to work, followed by I used a folding map to find the juice place in the first.
Yeah.
The contrast of those two, like you clone your pets and ride a hoverboard, and I still have to unfold this fucking paper map to even get to the juice place,
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Yeah. And I think also, like you said, just that whole sequence is pretty done in layman's terms. Like it isn't
Yeah.
there is no he does not use a word like chicanery or hecatomb or any of the other words I
No.
could throw out on a whim because of Aesop. But he
Yeah.
still is telling a story in the same way that he told it, 15 years prior, just with a little more refinement. And yeah, like, I mean, it's still evocative and it still has a lot of depth to it. It's just communicated differently. And yeah, like the classic. I don't know why I think of Jay-Z every time someone does this, but when you let the track breathe and like you say three words
Yeah.
in a bar, I always think of Jay-Z because I think that's where I learned it from or first
Mm-hmm. Same.
cognated it is just like the oh shit, like he only said four words in the whole like measure, but it worked.
Yeah, and there's some song where he says, "Let the track breathe," and I don't remember what song it is. For some reason, I feel like it's a Swiss Beats production, but I don't know if that's correct.
Yeah. Mm,
It's somewhere out there. We should find that.
yeah, because that's I mean, gosh, one thing that I'm excited to do with this show, just being a little fourth wall here, but one thing I'm excited to do is to just like talk about the different skills that rappers taught us, like just because
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you a lot of things that I've learned as a rapper listening to rappers and just like things that I've adapted or tried to improve because I noticed that one rapper that like yeah, like Jay-Z, like I learned like, oh, you don't need to cram every empty space with a syllable, like sometimes you don't need to go palm sweaty mom spaghetti already, like you don't have to do that. You could just say
Yeah.
tears on the mausoleum floor and that's it.
Yep.
um
Totally. Yeah. Anything else from you? That's all I got.
I mean, I guess
I
though.
just feel like the illustration of getting old that he shows us, it feels so relatable because there are a lot of moments where I'm like watching somebody younger
Mhm.
experience something, and it just makes me smile, and I feel like that's what he's doing here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the reason why I love this episode from you so much is because it resonates a lot with me and what I think about getting older, in the sense that it doesn't have to be and it shouldn't be this bad thing. Um, and that you have the ability to reframe what that means for you. And to me, I've chosen to believe that older means like wiser, smarter, more adept, and just more capable of being the best version of yourself, and that's a lot of what I got from this episode, and yeah, I just appreciated hearing you kind of reaffirm that for me.
Good. I'm choosing to believe those things as well.
Yeah, because otherwise I might as well just like bury myself in the ground with the rest of the fossil fuel, you know. Like what other alternative do you have to survive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. If you are watching this on YouTube or listening to it anywhere but Spotify, you're missing half the podcast. Every other week, we release short, focused essays set to beats. Those are the lessons episodes, followed by the full song that we're learning that lesson from. Those episodes are only available on Spotify. But we've got all the links, the videos, more bonus material at the blog post for these episodes at hiphoptaughtmeeverything.com. Go check that out. Go down the rabbit holes. I promise you, it's so much fucking fun.
Oh yeah.
It will take up a lot of your time, but it's a lot of fucking fun.
Time well spent.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll see you next time when an unlikely Midwestern rap collective teaches me family.
Woohoo!